Chapter 26. Good Omens. We went outside to the side shelter Colt said was the barn. We opened a fence to get to it. As Colt shut the door behind him, he pointed, "You make sure you lock this every time you come and go. I'm not going to be rounding up this foal for you if you forget." I nodded. "I mean it. This is important or else you will get hurt or worse." We went into the small barn. It had a small area made of wood with a tall door you could look in. There was a large buffalo, brown with curly brown fur and short thick horns. They were much bigger up close. With the buffalo was the foal, wearing a woolly skin piece tied on by ropes. "It's going to be all right. This buffalo lost its baby. It was standing near it still when I picked it out. This one we've used for pulling logs, so she isn't as wild as the others, but she is still young herself and full of spice, so you still need to be careful. She thinks the foal is her baby. Keep the skin on for at least 4 days, but longer the better. They will come and go from the barn. Just make sure you close the gate like I showed you. Every day give her this amount of hay. This should last you a while. I'll be back in 5 months. If I'm not, you will have to ask grandmother to order more before you run out. It may take some time to get here, so don't wait for the last to be used up before getting more." 5 months. Hey, this was all you're doing, so don't blame me. And I know you're going to want to play with him, just don't, not ever unless I'm here. But he likes me. Yes, and she doesn't. You get too close to her baby and she will flatten you. You can't read an animal yet, and these are not puppies, Vita. All right, I won't. Good. I'll take the goat back with me. The filly I borrowed it from will be wanting it back. Grandmother has her own goats. Does the filly know about the foal? Don't you worry, that filly will keep a secret when I tell her to. After shutting the gate and without a goodbye, he left. I went back inside the house. Grandmother was still rocking in her chair. "Well then, that wasn't too long. You look hungry and tired. I say we have a nice bowl of soup and bread, then get you some rest." "That sounds nice. Call me Grandma, Granny, Grandmother, Gigi, Ma, or whatever you prefer. Grandma sounds nice to me." We sat and had so many talks in the coming days. She came out and saw the foal with me a few times. She taught me how to milk the goats and bake cookies without causing too many fires. Each night she spoke to me of fairy tales. I liked the one, the wooden boy, and the one about the candy house and the witch. One night we were talking, "So tell me, I know you haven't been in the herd long before all this came about. How is my other son, your stallion, doing? He's quiet, but he did take in my brother as his son. He always was a boy of few words. And tell me of my daughter, Lavender." "Daughter? You mean granddaughter, don't you?" "He hasn't told you, my. Well, I guess it had to be that way. He couldn't have that coming out to the herd." "What?" "You heard that Marshall tried to stop the taking of his brother, almost started a war if it hadn't finished before it began." "Yes, a little. Well, as punishment, Harltz took my husband, the stallion at the time, and his brother Marshall as predicted by the test. But that's not all. That evil Harltz commanded another payment to be made privately. Marshall would still become stallion, but when he returned from Harltz, he was no longer able to be a father. The herd knows nothing of this, so you must never speak of it to anyone. I found myself pregnant with my late husband's child. I was so old, no longer in my prime. A stallion, when they are gone, the wife moves to her own house alone to grieve, so no one came to visit nor knew I was pregnant. I was not alone. I had the child I was carrying. When she was born, she was so small and frail. Marshall came and took her. He and his new wife were traveling back from her wolf pack. That's the only time I had met her. Her name was Laika. She had the most lovely black hair, not as dark as Colt's, but still beautiful. He was actually born here in this very cabin by the fireplace here. It was later I was told about my daughter's legs. Wait, but what about Colt? My son took a wife that was herdless. I have my suspicions she was kicked out from the wolf pack, but she never spoke of anything. You will meet them someday. There are many others as well. The deer herd is the closest in range to us, but the wolves were further out. Then there's the sea people. It took months to get to the wolf pack, even by horse. He went alone, leaving his second in charge, Galder. He found a woman without husband, who was with child in the early stages. By the time they returned to the herd, it looked as though she had his children. No one questioned this, because all were praying for a stallion to be born to the herd. and twins was a good omen.